Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Canadian Shield. My name's Sterling. I'm your host. So there's a lot going on, especially around the immigration issues that are plaguing Canada from coast to coast to coast. Of course, the Liberals have mismanaged it right from the word go. They are throwing money, dollars, and all kinds of problems. And then as soon as anybody tries to say anything about it, they're a bad, horrible human being. There's some kind of phobist. There's some kind of something. Unless, of course, it's them saying it and then everything is permissible and everything is okay. Well, it turns out that while Justin Trudeau sent out a tweet saying that everybody who doesn't want to live in the United States of America can just simply claim asylum in Canada, and we will pick up the tab for their lodging, their food, their medical bills, their lawyers' bills. They don't have to wait in line either, right? So anybody that might be making an application for free legal aid, they have to wait for the process. But if you're here on asylum, you got a battery of lawyers who are all billing the government at completely different dollar amounts. And that's the same holds true for housing. If you were born in this country and you have a hard way and you can't afford to live, or you get thrown out of your house, too bad. But if you come here seeking asylum, the government will rent you a hotel. Now, before I get into that, I want to encourage you to like, comment, subscribe, hit the notification bell, share this channel with all of your socials. Okay, so as I was saying, the government is paying for lots of money for hotel rooms. Now, before I read this little clip from the National Post, I want you to appreciate the idea is the government invited you here to seek asylum, but looking after you is the province's problem. And the provinces are like, you invited them here. We don't have the room for them, and we can't afford to keep throwing our money as you have taken all of our money and given it towards paying down debts for money that you borrowed for bad economic decisions. And of course, the Liberal government is telling any of the provincial parties that are not Quebec that that's a problem for them, except for Quebec. Quebec's getting a big fat check. The federal government, in addition to all of that, is considering to just buy the hotel. Why bother putting people in a hotel and paying them when they can just buy the hotel and apparently it will save them money, and then they can simply take the basement of the hotel, turn it into an all-you-can-eat kitchen, turn it into a staff room for lawyers, doctors, all of the stuff that goes along with an asylum application. Federal government considers buying hotels to shelter asylum seekers. Purchase of the entire building, just one option being considered as refugees continue to place a strain on the housing and the social services. Is anybody surprised by that? We have real problems in this country. If you're born in this country, you should be given priority. I don't care. You should at least be given the same. Federal government is weighing options for dealing with the ongoing crisis in housing for refugee claimants, with the Immigration Minister Mark Miller saying it might even purchase a hotel to convert them into refugee housing centers as a way of cutting costs. But it won't consider doing that for people that are homeless, just for refugees. Figures from Immigration, Refugees, Citizenship Canada show that this year alone, Ottawa has paid for 4,000 hotel rooms for 7,300 asylum seekers, many of them transferred from provincial shelters. So they got here, and then they had nowhere to go. The government put them into a shelter, and then the shelter said, hey, you got to do something about this because we don't know. They don't have anywhere to go. They don't know what they're doing. They're not broken. They're not broken from Canada. They don't have anywhere to go to. They just sort of sit in the corner all day and don't have anything to do. So to help us. While housing refugee claimants is a provincial responsibility, the federal government has been paying for hotels since the pandemic because overloaded provincial shelters. Now, when they say the government, Ottawa, is paying for it, what they really mean is that the taxpayer is paying for it. Other figures show that in the last 16 months other figures show that in the 16 months between September 2021 and January 2023, Ottawa spent close to $94 million booking entire hotels to house asylum seekers. This included 10 hotels in Montreal and others in Niagara Falls and Ottawa. On average, asylum seekers spent 113 days in the hotel at a cost of $208 per day, including meals and security. Now, why would you need to hire security if they're simply asylum seekers? Buying hotels isn't the only option on the table. They also want to maybe create an entire center because they will spend money to build those kinds of things. Those guys might then vote for them. But if you live in this country and you had a nice warm apartment in 2017 and now you're homeless because of the Liberal policies, well, they're not going to think that they don't think you're going to vote for them. So they're just simply ignoring you. As money continues to flow out from Ottawa in January, Miller announced an additional $362 million in funding for the Interim Housing Assistance Program as part of the 2023-2024 fiscal year. IHAP provides funding to provincial and municipal programs on cost-sharing basis to address the extraordinary interim housing pressures resulting in the increased number of asylum claimants. The new funding was in addition to the $212 million the national funding announced the previous summer. So they basically put in $500 million. And last month, Pierre Trudeau pledged $750 million to Quebec to help deal with the influx of refugee claimants that the province says has been putting a strain on housing, education, and health care. So we can see that the government has not stopped bringing people in across the border, that they are still treating asylum seekers like they're special and people that live in this country like they're nothing, like they don't matter at all. Appreciate the idea that if they're not from Central America, they took a plane to get here. They took a taxi. Many of them took a taxi to the border between Canada and the United States. They flew to an airplane, took a taxi to the border, and then they walked up to the customs house in Canada and said, hey, I'm here to seek asylum. Numbers that I've heard, which I have in another clip, are 50,000 so far this year alone. We don't have the room. We don't have homes for people that are born in Canada. Now, I understand that people might be running away from a lot of stuff, but I don't think that $500 million on funding, I don't think Justin Trudeau should be sending out tweets demanding or inviting more people to come to this nation. And it's not so much that it's the bodies, it's that we got no place to put them. I think that we need to be fixing our own before. It looks like they're just trying to break it at this point. It doesn't even look like they're trying to solve the problems. At least not where I'm sitting. Maybe it looks like that to you. Maybe I got it all wrong. I don't know. So sticking with the theme of liberal lunacy, they have appointed an anti-Semite to head the Human Rights Commission in Canada. Now, personally, I don't give much credence to the Human Rights Commission after a couple of rulings that they handed down last year or the year before. I think that any governing body that applies the rules differently to different groups is not worth calling a court at all. I don't believe that we should be saying rules for you and rules for him are different. And I certainly don't think that stands for human rights. If the right exists for one, the right exists for all, or it's not a right of any kind. It's a privilege. I know that the individual that they've appointed to be the head of the Human Rights Commission has a long history of anti-Semitism, which means that anybody that comes before him with a problem about anti-Semitism is not about being treated poorly because they're Jewish, is not going to get a fair shake. And anybody that comes up against him who is going to be, by extension, other Abrahamic religions is not going to get a fair shake. What I can say with absolute certainty is if there was a hint of them being racists or some kind of supremacist, they wouldn't elect them. They wouldn't select them. They wouldn't say you can have the job. Don't worry about it. We need to appoint people that are untarnished. A whisper, a hint, that's enough. That's enough to disqualify you as being qualified. Unless you're a liberal, then all of a sudden it's okay. It's okay that you can pick and choose who's allowed to express themselves in ways that can be considered distasteful. It's very telling that they would go ahead and continue to push this forward, knowing that there is a hint and a whisper, and that this is supposed to be a human rights tribunal, which is supposed to be all about equality and fairness. But the Liberal Party has decided that they are going to continue with it. They're just going to push it straight on through. And you can see here from the thing, Conservatives vow to remove the Liberals' pick for the Canadian Human Rights Commission. We recognize and share the public's concern regarding the potentially troubling statements attributed to Mr. Datani. Spokesperson said, the Center for Israel and Jewish Affairs said that there is added concern because if the online harms bill passes, it will reinstate controversial sections of the Canadian Human Rights Act that gives the Commission the power to hear complaints about hate speech. I don't understand why the Liberal Party would even consider it. So it makes you wonder if the Liberals aren't just up to something that they're not admitting to. You leave a comment, let me know. Last story we're going to cover in this episode is about the Hamas supporters running up and down Montreal, destroying, smashing, threatening, being generally disruptive, blocking roads, threatening people, it's innocent passersby in their car who just want to go about their life and about their day. So you can see a couple of things. First of all, I'd like to point out that sign was illegal in Quebec. When you have a sign, it has to be, when you have a sign written in English, you have to have the same sign written in French, and that French sign has to be 10% larger. So there was a violation there of Bill 101. So you can see that they ran like the wind as soon as the police showed up. They were marching up and down when they're in a large crowd, threatening a guy in a truck. The word intifada means armed revolution. They were screaming about no justice, no peace, which is a threat, right? If I said that to a person, they're walking around in that Palestinian flag, that, or whatever that's called, that thing that they wrap around their neck, which to some people in the world, that's going to be a symbol of hate. Imagine if they were walking around in a pointed white hat. We wouldn't permit that. Or if they were walking around with the different symbols that are, out through history considered to be hate symbols. But we saw their mettle. We saw what their caliber was. As soon as the police showed up, they ran like the wind. All right, I'm going to wrap here. I want to thank y'all for listening. I'll talk to you next time.